So Jobless Reincarnation has officially arrived. While yes, there was the leaked, I think it was episode 1 and 2 that aired early, and I think it got fan subbed or something, but I'm going off of the official releases for these reviews. It officially arrived, and with it brought about what is considered to be kind of like the granddad of Isekai series, one of the ones that started, if not started, the Isekai trend that you see in manga, light novels, and anime, and many of what is now considered tropes started here. So while watching the show, you might be saying, oh, this is a ripoff of this or that, but really, that's this series here in its original. I think it started as a web novel, turned to a light novel, and then turned into a manga, now it's turned into an anime. This is the one that kind of started and influenced many series out there, and even if it doesn't realize that it's been influenced by it, many shows just continue to get influenced by these trendsetters. And just because something does a trope or a trait first doesn't immediately say that it's good because of that. It just means that people took influence from it. So walking into this first episode, I said, I'm wondering, am I just going to see a bunch of tropes that I've seen before, or is there going to be something that really defined why so many authors took influence from Jobless Reincarnation? And luckily, I can safely say that it's honestly the latter. I feel like this show has a lot of potential for its world alone. While there's definitely some tropes that I wish we didn't have to have in this anime, like I think the perviness is pretty much cranked up a notch to a point that it doesn't need to be there. Luckily, I will say, because I did check out a few of the chapters of the manga just to get a little taste to see would this be something I would enjoy. In comparison to that, this show seems tame if I'm being completely honest. I mean, the character that he was in his human life based on that was pretty much like the ugly bastard definition. So it seems like they much more toned it down, kept what was there to be more comedic value than anything. And personally, I'm okay with it because there was a couple of chuckles there, here and there, but in terms of what the show had to offer, I mean, this episode was kind of defined as a guy who got killed, as per usual, isekai'd into a new world, a new fantasy world, who pretty much lived a very shitty life, had no social skills whatsoever, was reborn as a baby, who has all of his memories from his previous world, so he's technically an adult in a baby's body. Oh, he thinks his mom's hot, so he's like, oh, I guess I can cop a feel here. But the thing that quickly defines the episode, even though it starts off on the traditional pervy note, is that he's interested in learning magic. That he has no video games, he has no computers in this world, so at a very young age he starts learning to read and probably write as well as he reads magic textbooks, and for a very, very long time he just continues to try to cast a water spell that eventually destroys the home, and he gets a hot tutor by his own literal words. And now we get to see where it goes from here. Someone who's going to be raised both as a swordsman, but also a sorcerer. And I think that's what makes this episode so great. And the visual fidelity of this show is one of the defining moments of this. I'm not going to kid ourselves here. The visuals at times look like a movie production, and the trailer already gave off that impression. I think a lot of people were pretty impressed by just how it looked, because you would say, oh, we're watching an anime movie trailer for this Jobless Reincarnation, but really it's a TV broadcast. And while most of the scenes look like a high-polished TV production, when it gets into the more magic-driven scenes, it looks incredibly well, especially when they get into that dramatic slow-mo zooming in with the magic forming. It's pretty damn impressive, I have to say, and I'm really excited to see where magic will go. I am a huge sucker. You can throw me like the shittiest show ever, and if you have like cool-looking magic, I'm gonna get some entertainment value alone from that. So the fact that I actually am interested in seeing a character who fans of the material have said that this is a story about improvement, like improving yourself and overcoming shitty things, and our character, based on how he's already described himself and some of the comments he made at a pretty young age in this show, it says to me that he's not the greatest of people out there, and he's pretty damn socially awkward. But the idea of him starting as a baby and having to rise up over the years, while yes, especially when puberty hits for his actual body, I imagine we're going to see some pretty questionable things. If this show really is all about improvement and overcoming shitty things about yourself, I think this could be a really impressive show for a character who starts off at a situation where you think there's no way this will be a very likable character, but becoming someone you actually want to root for. Rudy as a character, I think the thing that makes me enjoy him so much more than what I initially glanced over with the manga adaptation, and while manga adaptations of a light novel adaptation of a web novel adaptation may not be the most faithful of things, it just gave me the impression that he's going to be a very creepy character right off the get-go. But the voice actor they got for his human voice, which we hear inside his child's head, is really, really engaging. And when he does say creepy things, it's said so like straight-faced, nonchalant, that it becomes funny just because of the voice backing it, if I have to be completely honest. Watching this episode, I really found myself engaged with the world, and while you could really strip it down and say what's different about what we've seen with this world in comparison to other fantasy shows out there, you can't really say any one thing based on episode 1 alone, but with the way they explore the idea of these spells and how he's starting to use spells without even using the speech that you're supposed to use, which probably means he's incredibly gifted, and that doesn't happen in this world based on Roxy, which is his tutor's kind of like thought process being like, okay, you're clearly someone worth teaching if you're able to do this. I think there's a lot of things, and it just gave me potential vibes is probably the best way to put it. It felt like this was a show that, while yeah, you can definitely already see all the influences, good and bad, that isekai and fantasy series have took from this and other series that probably were released around the same time. It feels to me that this is a show that has so much promise, and the idea of watching him from a baby get up into probably teenage to adult years, most likely more in the teenage years based on the poster image of at least the first core. It seems to me that there's good hope for this, and I actually really enjoyed the parents, which you don't get to say too often in these types of shows. Generally, the parents are kind of brushed aside very quickly, but the mother being the sorcerer, and then the father being the warrior. I mean, there's one joke that really did land for me quite well. There's this moment where our boy's reading in bed, reading his books, trying to learn magic, understanding the fundamentals of this world, and the parents are just having sex across the room, and he's just so engrossed in his book, which did say to me that, you know, he's not just going to simply be the pervert character, because when he's born, he's already ready to cop his literal mother's breasts in this world, and then transfers over to being more interested in his sorcery book. So that does give me hope for these kind of comedic moments without him kind of degrading into just a pretty shitty person, all things considered. I think a lot of people watching this first episode probably will come out saying, oh, this just feels like what we've seen before, but a very high quality production. But I mean, when you really do take into consideration that this is a show that inspired a lot of things out there, it does says to me that this has a lot of potential going forward. And honestly, even though a lot of the traits that I don't like in characters are seen in Rudy himself, I do think his desire to be a strong sorcerer and understand this world more, and it definitely gives me the impression he's doing it simply because, one, he's bored as shit and there's nothing to do in this world, so he might as well try to understand the magic in this world. He has a really great moment in this episode where he's talking about how, like, he can't trust everything he reads in books because the books are saying that your magic abilities are defined at birth, which probably are true, but it's just funny to see from a kid's point of view who has a human adult mind inside his child's body. It's just kind of hilarious for that alone. So I think there's some potential for his character to really become something interesting. And while, yes, you know, even if you don't look at the poster image, that there's going to be a large assortment of female characters who he's probably going to do very questionable things around, at least in terms of what he thinks or says. It says to me, though, if the fans are saying that this is a story about redemption, that gives me a lot of hope for this. I think this is a show that's definitely going to be defined first and foremost with its intro by its world, because that's the thing that kind of hooks me, watching Rudy interact with a new world and seeing how he's understanding the fundamentals. But as the story gets going deeper and deeper, and probably especially in that second core, that's when the characters are really going to take off and flourish and become something that probably will be quite special, all things considered. I mean, for entertainment value alone, you're probably going to have a lot of fun. I mean, if we can have this much fun just blasting trees with little water spells, imagine what's going to happen in actual action scenes, which, you know, we're eventually going to get, especially if he's being trained as a swordsman. There's a lot of potential here, and I think overall it left me impressed. This was a very solid, I would say great episode. Well, yeah, the tropes are there, but it kind of defined those tropes, and I can see them being something quite special at the end of the day. And yeah, I'm here for the long haul, I have to say. I'm definitely very impressed with this one. I'd be interested to hear what everyone thought down below. Did you like it as much as myself, or was it just not something for you? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.